More on the stakes of this. We're joined by Lisa Raitt, former Deputy Conservative Leader and Vice Chair of Global Investment Banking at CIBC Canada. Great to have you back on the show. Good morning.
Great to be here, Anne-Marie. Thanks.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This does feel like a new way of doing things in Canada. We're seeing premiers being sidelined. I know that Eby and Carney have had a discussion, but when this conversation comes up, how could an agreement like this actually work? How can a promise be made about exemptions to environmental assessments and everything be made without BC's approval?
Because I think the first step in any of these kinds of projects is ensuring that the regulatory ground is clear and it's fair. And right now, the province of Alberta has said to the federal government, look, you've put in some policies and some regulations over the past 10 years that really deter investment from coming into our province and allowing us to build some resource projects that we think need to be built. That has to be settled first before you even think about having a project come in. Once the project is there, or whoever's the proponent, maybe it's going to be the province of Alberta, then you do have to go and talk to British Columbia, and you do have to talk to the First Nations. But the first step has to be setting the groundwork of what the regulatory environment is going to be federally, so that there is some certainty for any company that may want to take a look at doing a project here.
Well, this is what I have been wondering. Is all precarious sounds too negative, but it is a lot of pieces that have to be in place. So in order to attract the investment, you have to be able to promise the approvals. So you've got them down for one province, but then you still need to get them from BC. So it is a longer step process. The Prime Minister is going to give a speech at the Calgary Chamber of Commerce event on Thursday, and the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers is sponsoring the event. This is a lobby group that criticized the former Trudeau government often and loudly. What could that signal about the Prime Minister's commitment to Alberta? The fact that the petroleum producers are sponsoring an event where he's the keynote.
Well, I find it really interesting that the Prime Minister's office hasn't rejected the fact that CAP is actually going to be one of the sponsors there. Capital Power is the other one. You can see that on the slide that you put up. But for me, it means that the Prime Minister is going in with an open mind. He has said that he does believe that there should be some kind of discussion around pipelines. He has talked about, for sure, carbon capture in Alberta as being a way forward for a lower carbon oil, as he talks about. But the mere fact that he's coming there and talking is a great step forward compared to the previous Liberal government, which really did have a broken relationship with all sorts of different Alberta governments, not just the Danielle Smith one.
Well, you've repaired one relationship and then you've put some stress on another one. BC Premier David Eby saying he told the Prime Minister it is unacceptable to sideline him from those talks with Alberta about a pipeline. What do you make of that?
So I'm trying to understand what Premier Eby is concerned about. I don't think Premier Eby actually has a say in what federal regulations are going to apply or not apply in the case of Alberta when it comes to building a pipeline or moving on with any kind of energy-related project. He certainly has a say when it comes to what are the impacts on the province of British Columbia. How can you mitigate them, or can you mitigate them at all? Yeah. That's the step two in the conversation. The step one is between Alberta and the federal government.
Does he have veto power, Premier Eby?
No, actually, the Supreme Court took a look at this and it's been gone through. A pipeline is a structure, especially when it goes across a provincial border, of federal jurisdiction. However, there can be conditions put on by British Columbia that would make it more difficult for a pipeline to be built, but they do not have a veto.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says she's going to submit a pipeline proposal to the Major Projects Office. Of course, that's in Calgary. That's coming in the spring in May. How confident are you, based on your experience, that this MOU is actually going to lead to a pipeline being built?
That is the million-dollar or the billion-dollar question, Amber. I'm really glad that they're submitting something to the Major Projects Office. I think that's the proper place for these kinds of projects to go, because what it comes down to is this. Is this project one that's going to be picked up by the private sector, and is it one that they want to invest in? There's a lot of things that have to go into that mix, including having some certainty around whether or not they're going to be able to get regulatory approvals and buy-in from First Nations. As a result, it's too early to say whether that means that this MOU will yield a pipeline, but we are majorly steps ahead of where we were yesterday.
Well, as we said, it is a new way of doing business on a federal level. We'll have to have you back to talk about how this new process could unfold and what everybody's going to have to start getting used to. Thanks so much for joining us, Lisa.
Great pleasure. Thanks, Anne-Marie.
That's, of course, Lisa.